Well, it's a little bit late, so I will start with some irrelevant comments for, just to, entertain a little bit. First thing is I was supposed to wear a suit, but it's somewhere in Europe because they lose my suitcase. So actually, this is the worst seat that I have. I was just wearing that in the plane because, but it's what I have. Sorry about that. Second silly remark, I'm not working in the Autonomous University of Barcelona. I'm working in the Autonomous University of Barcelona. That means that the center where I work for, that is called CREAF, it's in the Autonomous University of Barcelona land. So it was partially correct, but not completely correct. I have the obligation to say that because those guys are the ones that are paying my salary. And finally, I'm with the OGC, so I'm an active member of the OGC. I like standards. Actually, I write the standards, so I'm one of the problematic guys that creates those problems of interoperability that doesn't work. So guilty as charged. Do you know the WMTS, the tile matrix, the map tile service? I'm the author of that thing in particular. I also participated as author in this one with Wolfgang Kresse, that was actually the main author. I was the number 2 there, and it's a pleasure to be here to tell you what this document is about. So we are talking about long-term preservation. It's the first time that the 19 whatever standards try to talk about that. So we were also in that community learning. I approached that because I knew about ISO metadata, and I thought that the preservation was an interesting problem. So well, I tried to help as much as I could, but I'm not part of any library or archive or whatever. I have to be honest with that. So what this slide is saying is not very original at that point of the day, because most of the things were already said. So we are looking for a uniform way of long-term preservation of large digital geospatial data sets. The data is growing faster than the storage media capacity, and this is what motivates that the Catalan Cartographic and Geologic Institute asked us to do something about that. And we started a dialogue with them, and some of the ideas in the standard comes from these particular discussions at the beginning. So I'm not an archivist, but I'm in close contact with some. So this is partially my excuse. I mean, we know that it's complicated because we have topological relations. We know that it's complicated because the way GIS data is done, we are kind of a nice and clean, so we separate the data from the symbology, from the metadata, from the printing configuration, but our users want everything together, actually. So this creates problem. And in addition, we were pioneers in this service-oriented architecture of data that is created in a volatile way and then it vanishes after it's created. And the imagery, particularly the remote sensing, is killing us because it's giving us myriads of data sets every day. Well, in this context, we tried to approach that. Actually, were the cadastre agencies the first that came up with the idea of some preservation standard in the ISO 19 series in 2010. This is just to impress you about how complicated came up with a standard is, but you already know. So in 2014, the thing was finally approved, and inside the TC211, so we started to work on it, and in 2017 it became a draft international standard, and finally a standard in itself that was approved, and the authors were particularly happy that day, of course. And that's the document here in that site. The standard sets rules for long-term preservation. It includes discussions on metadata and ancillary data, and also it talks about how a geospatial archival information package could be done. It starts with a set of principles. This is not very long because there were, you cannot imagine how many discussions were among different countries, because, you know, this is ISO. So it's not companies, it's not institutions, it's nations. So you receive, no region guy says, your comment about the data format, we never heard about this format. Why you are putting that in the list? So you end up removing the list altogether because you don't get consensus. This is how it works. You know what I mean? So in the end, well, I'm not particularly happy on this section, but in any case, it sets up the problematic. No? It is this idea of trying to figure out a prioritization, and you are going to see later something about that, trying to decide on formats, but we don't say anything about formats. This guy was far more brave than we were in this standard. Software and algorithms and properties of the geospatial data, the concept of the gold copy, the things about rights and licensing. This is an important thing because you know, the cartographic agencies need to understand that they are releasing the rights into the archive when they finalize their job, and well, this is also discussed, and of course the question of time and the evolution. So we didn't want to reinvent the open archival information standard, of course. Actually, we were pleased about this idea of the information package that actually simplifies a little bit the situation and sets us in a scenario where we can forget about these continuously updated data sets like, you know, the cadastre, for example. Well, we are happy with a frozen image from time to time. So, well, that's fine, but the standard itself doesn't provide any actual implementation of the thing. So we started to analyze that, and well, I hope it's bigger enough. This is a diagram that tries to define or set what the open preservation standard says in terms of additional information that you need. This is a pointer, but I wanted a pen. So it says that you have an information package, but you have also additional information. It's not just about content, it's about descriptions. Oh, that's metadata more or less, no? It says reference information, provenance, context information, including fixity, so something about integrity of the bytes, and access rights information. And then there is some kind of a representation information that adds even more metadata, like the structure of the information, the semantics of the information, and other stuff. So this is actually metadata. And what we wanted to do was actually to see if the 19115 standard, the one about metadata, was comprehensive enough to actually cover all these aspects. So we are not talking about the 20 minimal entries in the metadata. We are looking at them all, 130 something like that entries, and we want to do a completeness test. And well, this is the same figure, but it was more fun if I just painted on the screen. So what we wanted to do is exactly that. We wanted to recycle what is in 115, but we also wanted to recycle other work by other experts that, of course, they knew better what needs to be done. So actually by recycling these, the preservation relevant information gets scattered into the ISO model, but nevertheless it's better to do it that way. But it is not a surprise for you that it was not enough. So if you think that ISO 115 is too complicated, get prepared for the next round. In white, you are seeing the actual metadata boxes. So here you have, for instance, data quality, distribution, format, identification, usage, resource, etc. Those are the things that already exist in 115. And in gray, there are the things that we added and how they were connected. It seems a mess, but it is not. There is a logic inside, I promise you. So metadata, this is section 7.3. It's quite long because it's full of these UML diagrams that I love but everybody hates. Many people that knows me knows that in each and every presentation that I do, there is a UML diagram at least, and they learn to laugh when they see it, just because they are expecting it. Anyway, this one is full of those. Actually, what we needed to add is the preservation actions, the concept of preservation actions. So when the data is preserved, there are some things that you do to the data that you need to document. You need to know the relations with other resources as part of the context, sorry. You need to describe the preservation package, and we believe it's not there. You need to document how the data was acquired and transferred to the preservation institution, let's call it that way. And the most important thing, we did some effort in trying to evaluate the value of the thing. Because as I said, the Catalan Cartographic Institute, where this work starts, were absolutely sensible with these piles of tapes that they have to re-record every 3 or 4 years, just because, you know, probably most of you know, but I was very surprised to know that the standards for those tapes are changing just every 2 or 3 years, and the brands only guarantee 2 generations compatibility. So if you are in the generation -2, you are in a problem and you need to migrate. So there is a guy there that does almost that in that institution. They were really worried, so they wanted to have some kind of a criteria to decide what is less important and what is more important. And this is a crucial question, and I don't want to be in that role, but at least just to provide some kind of a model about that. Okay, so the relations between resources were mapped with this thingy. There are already some associated resources on the ISO model, but we wanted to add the premise classification for how or why these relations are kept. This is the part of the value, use, and justification. So the model starts with here the preservation strategy policy, so you can cite what is the reason you are presenting legally point of view, when you want to review the preservation status, and where this thing expires. And then you can even document a preservation decision, or you could even decide to remove that from the archive, but still remember that this resource was there. There is some capacity to describe the reason for the value, and we are describing uniqueness value or testimonial value, and which kind of reason is there, administrative, legal, evidence, research, whatever. And then some final elements for justifying that value. And also, since the information is used more and more by service, one of the ways to justify the value is actually to to understand that this information is shared using service. So actually documenting the services that were offering that data and how often those services were used could be also something that helps you to justify the value. So this is this extension here in this part. All right. Also, a mechanism to describe the package itself, so which are the parts of the package that are called package elements here, this is kind of an informatic description of how the package is composed. So more or less, and this is, there are many other details, you can go to the document, but those are the main things that we find out were not in the ISO model, and we added those in the ISO model. Another thing that we wanted to discuss is how to do a package. So we included the idea of using open packaging conventions in here. Open packaging conventions is actually a standard that comes from another ISO thing. I have a slide later where I will clarify that. In any case, the Open Packaging Convention, it's a mechanism similar to a TAR, so it's kind of several parts together in a single file that combines the zip compression plus some XML documents that clarifies the content of the package, the media types present in the package, and more importantly, the relations between the different parts that compose the package in a standard way. So, also a quick look, and some encryption systems. If you use this and you describe a shapefile, you are going to say that there are 3 parts in the shapefile, and you are going to create one of these XML files that explain that the 3 things are related together and you cannot separate them. And you describe that in a completely standard way, so you don't rely on the shapefile dependency in itself. So if you now discover another kind of a file, let's suppose a JPEG 2000, no, that's a bad example. A TIFF file that is not a GeoTIFF, but it has an XML attached to it with the metadata. You can also specify in one of these XMLs that those 2 files are together and you cannot separate them. There is a relation with that. So this allows interoperability in a way that you can do data maintenance and mixing packages or extracting parts of the package without even knowing what's the nature of the formats that you are dealing with internally. And that's a good idea, we believe. So we can use the Open Packaging Convention without any modifications, and it gives us this extra value of the quick look that it's useful, and all the other things that I more or less already presented. It also allows us to map or to include the metadata, the symbolization, whatever part you want. Please, even if I do this is not the geo package. The geo package has been also formulated here. In this case, we are creating a package, but we are not altering the information. We are saving the information in the very same format. In the case of a geo package, if you use a geo package, you need to transform everything to SQLite and embed it in the geo package so you have a different data set. Maybe your transformation is excellent, but still, it's a transformation. So going into practice. Well, for the metadata, I have to say that I checked, and the schemas for the geospatial preservation metadata extension are there, publicly available in the ISO portal. So they are ready for being used to create instances. They were generated automatically from the UML models using an interactive instruments tool that is called ShapeChange, in the same way that the other ISO metadata are used. Well, there is an extra one here. By the way, we are not using the the old 19115 that everybody is using. We are using the 115-1. That is the new version that nobody is actually using, but we should use because it's the one that is active today. So, well, I'm waiting for everyone to use it. So, as I said, the XML documentation is there, and it's definitely possible to create examples that, for instance, describe the package information using XML. This is a nice representation of it, or the context information using associated resources. Well, my presentation continues by explaining you an anecdote, if you want, and that is the following. So, and this is a discussion about the package itself. Consider this nice map. This is a topographic example that I downloaded yesterday from my Cartographic Institute in Catalonia. This is home, by the way. I live here. That's the exercise that everybody does. Don't laugh at me, because you know you have done that. Anyway, do you know do you want to guess how many files are involved in this particular package? So this is a topographic. There are a lot of layers, and you have to anticipate that. There are symbolization tables. There are symbols, a triangle, you know, for a geodesic vertex and things like that. There are points, there are lines, there are polygons. There are, of course, additional tables. There are metadata files, one metadata file for each of the individual layers, and so on. So in total, it's 539 files in 8 folders. Try to create manually a package that contains all that, and you will miss for sure something, and you will put here something that is not relevant. Both things probably, no? So how to collect all these elements? And maybe, and this is an example of our software. This is a software that we do that is called Miramon. This is a nice logo here of our product. It's a GIS, a remote sensing thing. Maybe we are exaggerating with the number of files, but even if you use shapes, there are 10 different layers, and some of them are lines and polygons simultaneously, and so on. So you will end up with at least 50 shape files plus everything. So in any case, you will need to collect lots of elements. The parts are connected anyway. The software knows it. There are implicit links, or there are explicit links in the maps and the metadata. So it is possible to build an automatic tool that actually discovers those links and stores all the parts in a single file. This is what we did in the past, and this is an exercise that is older than the ISO 115, and we call it MMZ, because, you know, it's MM because of Miramon, and it's Z because of the zip. Well, it was a name. It is still used by the Catalan Cartographic Institute. As you can see, I went to this place and I downloaded the map, just one click, and you see everything open. It explodes in a temporal directory, but the user doesn't know about that. So the 500, let's not exaggerate, the 500 files will disappear when you close the application automatically. It worked, but it was not a standard. So when we looked at alternatives is when we discovered the Open Package Convention. The Open Package Convention is actually defined in this, the 29500-2. And guess what? This was defined by Microsoft. And it's surprisingly the format that Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and many other X files are using these days. Did you know that a docx is actually a zip file? Do the exercise. If you rename that and you convert it in a zip file, you will see the internal structure. It's a perfect way of recover your attached figures. If you start throwing, you know, screenshots in a doc file, it's very difficult to recover them at the original resolution. But if you change the extension to zip, then you can recover exactly as they were. if you are able to guess where they are, because you have no names. So you have to guess. So the thing is, they actually use a package, and they actually wanted to create a transversal package that is agnostic of the Microsoft decisions on the Word and Excel and PowerPoint. Is only this mechanism to have a directory structure inside, plus the relations that are specified in Rails files that are very simple and just explain how the files are related. So it was relatively easy to change our software to, instead of use the MMZ, we call it MMZX, but actually it's better because now it uses a zip file, a zip compression file. It can be decompressed in any of those zip tools, and it has all the different elements inside. And even if our software disappears, as far as there is a zip code out there, we can decompress that. So it has two applications now. You can use it as a distribution of current data, so it's actually not a distribution package, it's actually current data package, let's call it that way, in the internet, but you can use it to preserve data. So actually it's an implementation of this ISO that I'm presenting here, and the Catalan administration, they were convinced, and now they are saving their data sets with a tool that we created that actually uses the internal minimum format, but it also replicates the data in a compatible format. So we decide GeoTIFF in this case for raster format, and GML, particular flavor GML that better preserves the relations with the data tables and the attributes, but it's GML for the vector thing. So it's a solution that our government is using, and we hope that more solutions emerge based on this idea. Not necessarily on the idea of the MMZX, but just in the idea of an open package convention that we are making known in the preservation standard. So final comments. The metadata model, that section 7.3, is fairly complete, maybe too much complete, but there aren't tools to bring that into practice. They are needed. So we need to convince people to start using that, to start thinking if the extensions are useful for them. The Catalan Cartographic and Geologic Institute is considering to use that in their cartographical library. They were, paying us for doing the initial study, so it will be silly if they don't try. But we hope that others find what we did interesting. If you don't like it, please consider that every 5 years, standards are reviewed. So standards are not written in stone, and actually they are deprecated, so that probably creates some problem with preservation, but that's another story. So when an ISO edits a new version, in theory, the old version becomes automatically deprecated. Anyway, every 5 years, those are reviewed. So if you, in this group, have lesson learned that needs to be added as new aspects of that, we can think about that in just 3 years. That's nothing in practice. So let's think about that. There is also an initiative to create a -2. The remote sensing guys are thinking that all their documentations that they have to describe their missions needs a better standard. So they are creating that. That's kind of a funny, no? Because the OIs was actually created by the remote sensing guys. We took that. We did the ISO thing, and now they are not satisfied, so they are creating yet another thing. It's kind of strange, but that's what it is. It's in a very draft status, but I have seen some discussions starting. So it's the right moment to influence that if you want. Or if you feel that the standards discussed in this group needs to be moved as a dash 3, due to the number of countries involved in this initiative, I really believe that's perfectly possible that somebody just moved one ISO project in the TC211 initiative, and with the support of the other countries, it will fly. That's for sure. So if you feel the need of that, please consider that I can help in what is possible. Well, I also offer the data preservation working group in OGC. It was relatively active at the beginning of the creation of the group. It hasn't been for a while, but we can reactivate that. This could also be useful for coordinate initiatives in the European Union with other countries, particularly in the US. I have seen that you are coordinated enough with the US, with WebEx, but well, you know, if you need a forum, that could be a forum. Let me just say that the next OGC meeting is not in America, is in Leuven. So actually that one could be particularly easy to attend. If somebody wants to get invited to that meeting, please consider that, and we could prepare a presentation there in one slot. Okay, so thank you for your time, and I hope I didn't bore you too much in that last hour of the day.
Thank you very much, Joan Massot. And I'm happy that you see that we can contribute to this, because we have a lot of questions, especially when you started talking about archival metadata. And I think that together we can create better solutions for everybody that will be used in the end, because this is something that happened with initial Geoark, Geodata in E-Ark. It was a pilot case, it was a test case, and now we are putting it into the e-archiving building block, and that's why we invited you, so that we can start the ball rolling.
Exactly.
And the more people that start using it, the more good comments we will get, and we will have a good standard in the end. And
the standards are only successful if they are implemented. If not, they are piece of papers.
Yeah. My question first is, when is this in June?
I have to check, but I can provide you the details.
There's a TC211 meeting in Maribor in Slovenia in June 5th, which is also something that we will attend. And as before, I will take my privilege to ask the first technical questions here.
It's in the last week, the week that starts with 24, okay. Sorry.
Okay. That's doable.
So it doesn't overlap.
Okay, so my question is, you said that there were some elements in the ISO 1915 that were missing for description of the preservation information. Yeah. And I saw that you had some boxes, but I don't know where they came from, because we use separate XML files for different preservation information, like METS is for the structure of the package, and premise is for elements, and then we have a standard EAD, which is for electronic archival records, which also describes it. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, is this XML in the end something that is combining all the elements from all those 3-4 standards, or do you have different files for?
No. Our intention was to try and simplify the arena and provide a 115 that was powerful enough to satisfy the archiving needs too. So with a single file, you have the whole thing that you need. Wait, you know, that's an idea. If you are satisfied with what you are doing, well, that's fine, but it might be useful in other contexts.
Because the next question is, how do you validate this schema? I mean, you cannot use the ordinary 19115 validators, but you need to have a special schema and validate that one.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, you can validate the schema with an XML schema validator. That's the first step, but you probably prefer a more humane tool, that tool needs to be created. As far as I know, and there isn't anything there yet.
Okay. So these are my questions. Are there any other questions? Because this is an interesting topic for archiving geodata. Or does everybody want to go home?
Or home tell.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then I thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you everybody for coming today.